There's a monastic warrior, one that's served by a rigid code of ethics where honor and morality defined its every move, one that believed in a spiritual energy that exists in all living things, an energy that can be harnessed and mastered for good. They existed a long time ago, not in a galaxy far, far away, but on this planet. I'm of course talking about the samurai. What?
Talking about something else you thought I was?
It's no secret that Star Wars creator George Lucas drew inspiration from samurai films like The Hidden Fortress for his intergalactic space opera. But the similarities between the monastic Jedi and militant samurai aren't just drawn from fiction. From belief systems and codes of honor to fighting style and even attire, the two groups of legendary warriors are cut from the same cloth. The threads used to weave together Star Wars come from the ancient history of feudal Japan, which in turn inspired filmmaking legend Akira Kurosawa. Kurosawa was prolific between the 50s and 60s for his 17th century Jedi-geki films, a genre specific to Japanese historical fiction and period pieces. Kurosawa's films laid the foundation for samurai cinema that's had an indisputable impact on Western filmmaking, with much of his work being remade and adapted into cowboy westerns. His movie Yojimbo would be interpreted as a fistful of dollars,
Get 3 coffins ready.
Seven Samurai, The Magnificent Seven, and Rashomon, The Outrage. But the impact of these samurai films would go far beyond the dusty ruins of spaghetti westerns. Kurosawa's 1958 classic would also end up inspiring one young Californian director to the stars. Right off the heels of his wildly successful coming-of-age comedy American Graffiti, George Lucas was ready to do something entirely different, a space opera. Lucas had previously tried his hand at sci-fi with a commercial flop, but still beloved cult film THX 1138. This time he was aiming for something less totalitarian and bleak, and something more fantastical, something like Flash Gordon, the serialized space adventure. Which is exactly what he intended to adapt, but when he couldn't obtain the rights, he started pulling inspiration from different places. Lucas caught a screening of The Hidden Fortress, and as he stated in J.W. Winsler's The Making of Star Wars, Kurosawa's movie became an influence right from the very beginning. The Hidden Fortress's two bumbling peasants, Tahi and Marashishi, became C-3PO and R2-D2. Both are depicted as lower-class citizens who charmingly bicker back and forth, are eventually separated, reunited, and act as the storytelling vehicle to introduce us to the broader cast of characters and the conflicts that await. There's a princess in peril at the hands of an evil enemy clan, there's a renowned warrior that fought in historical battles, and even the scene transitions are the same. And while the plot points can seem uncanny, the most remarkable inspiration came from Akira Kurosawa's depiction of the samurai, the notable and disciplined heroes of all Jedi-geki films. From the values depicted on screen, George Lucas started to shape his own kind of samurai, a legendary warrior whose legacy spans centuries in history, the Jedi. Sure, on the surface, the comparisons between the samurai and the Jedi are obvious. They both wear garbs and wield a sword, just one of them is made out of a laser. But there's more to the Jedi than just robes and laser swords, however. The defining traits of the Jedi are also in the power of the Force, the code they adhere to and abide by, their sense of good and evil, right and wrong, and a responsibility to uphold harmony. These qualities aren't just unique to the Jedi, for the 17th century samurai also obeyed a dualistic way of thinking, a way of life guided by beliefs and a strict code of honor. And in order to grasp how these historical warriors that held the reins of power for 700 years shaped George Lucas's make-believe intergalactic knights, we have to go back to, well, a different kind of Jedi. Samurai, meaning one who serves, first rose to prominence in the 12th century, and unlike Jedi, weren't always considered the ideal archetype for morality or peace. They were considered relentless militant warriors, ones that held honor above all else, So much so that in order to preserve their honor in the face of defeat, they'd end their own lives in a suicidal ritual known as seppuku, death by disembowelment.
And while killing yourself to preserve your honor seems a bit extreme, this uncompromising commitment was the edge that made them unlike any military class. At the time, the samurai were as respected as they were feared.
That is, until the end of the 16th century. During the 1400s, Japan was split up into hundreds of domains, which inevitably resulted in a full-blown civil war as the rulers scrapped for increasing amounts of power. And by 1603, the war had ended, and Japan was unified by the shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu.
The end of warfare and the unification of Japan left the samurai at a turning point. These once elite warriors needed to adapt to this brave new world. They had to learn how to operate within a new societal structure.
They started to adapt the ideas of Confucianism, a belief system that emphasizes loyalty and duty, and believes that humans are fundamentally good. It taught them to train and live equally among other social classes, without losing the values of their warrior spirit in a politically peaceful era. They began to study Zen Buddhism, the idea that salvation would come within, and Shinto, the way of kami, a Japanese way of life that emphasizes being in touch with the spiritual energy that exists in earthly objects like forests, mountains, bodies of water, and the air.
You know, like the Force. The Force, like kami, is, as Obi-Wan Kenobi says,
it's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
But there's a cycle to kami. It's believed that when people die, their spirits become one with kami, like fallen Jedi whose bodies disappear and join the Force. Lucas's interpretation of kami and adaptation into the Force was a much more wondrous approach to a key part of Japan's ancient way of Shinto.
It involves what feels like an endless arsenal of abilities like telekinesis, mind control, and even shooting lightning from your fingertips.
And as far as we know, Shinto doesn't give you any special powers. In that respect, the Force is also like a more exaggerated version of Chi.
I wanted to take all religions, major religions, and primitive religions and come up with something they might have in common. Chi originated from Chinese culture, translating to life force or energy flow. It's often associated with martial arts, and again, even the samurai practiced mastering Chi, believing it could assist them in their swordsmanship.
Special powers aside, the amalgamation of these spiritual beliefs are what led to what is interpreted today as the defining code of morality and honor, broadly known as Bushido. Shintoism connected the samurai to their people and the land. Confucianism taught them to respect authority. Zen Buddhism gave them morals, a sense of mind over matter. This scope and way of life were turned into 8 virtues that the samurai would live and abide by.
These 8 rules would serve as the roadmap that would reach beyond the samurai and influence the culture, and they would be the very same rules that George Lucas's Jedi Code would mirror. George Lucas has stated that his inspiration for the Jedi was drawn from many sources, including the concepts of chivalry used by medieval knights, and other mythologies and theories found within major and primitive religions. The influence of Kurosawa's films are prevalent even in Lucas's earliest iteration of his Star Wars universe. It wasn't only Hidden Fortress that influenced him, but Kurosawa's filming and editing techniques as well, according to The Making of Star Wars by J.W. Rinsler.
The threads that sew together most of pop culture's most impactful films and franchises come from the spool that stitched together ancient feudal Japan. The 17th century is regarded as the country's golden age, with its influence extending hundreds of years. The Jedi Geki film genre, popularized by Akira Kurosawa, is just one of the many ripples that emanated from it.
Kurosawa's films romanticized the samurai, especially that of the Ronin, the warriors outcasted during the shifting political planes of the 17th century, a situation which coincidentally mirrored that of a cowboy in the Wild West during the 19th century, making the adaptation of Jedi Geki films into westerns so easy. And alongside shaping the western genre that reigned supreme in America for decades, it also led Lucas to take it all on an intergalactic adventure with bickering robots, power-wielding monastic warriors, space cowboys, and an epic war against an autocratic galactic empire. Lucas's work, in turn, has had an impact on the world that's so massive it's overwhelming to comprehend. And just as Kurosawa defined an era of cinema and inspired George Lucas, Star Wars has defined an era of popular culture in such a way that there's no telling how far its impact will reach.
The samurai ruled Japan for nearly 700 years. There's no telling how Star Wars will shape the planet or even the galaxy centuries from now. That is a wrap of season 1 of True Fiction. Now, of course, if this is your first time joining us, we have 6 other episodes for you to go back and watch, so please check those out if you have a chance. Otherwise, this is a big old thank you from the True Fiction team to you. Thanks for watching. And a high kick, and we're out. Cut. Cool. All right, we're done. Okay, cool. That was it. That was fun. Thanks for entertaining it.